Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, August 16th, 2019. Hope everybody had a wonderful work week as Friday is now finally upon us. Some of us that means we get a couple days off. Some of us that means we're going to work tomorrow. Taking a look at our space weather right now, solar wind speeds are sitting at a 364.4 kilometers with a density of 3.4. Our sun is blank. Still, that's now 9 days in a row, 153 days in 2019, and climbing as far as days without sunspots. Also, looking at our TCI reading right now, and that is at 2.96. We saw it slightly above the 3.0 mark. And that was also during a couple of times where we experienced increases in solar wind speeds. So I'd like to say, or I'd like to believe, that there is a correlation of some sort with that as well. And we will find out again as we have a chance for some more solar wind on the, I think Maury said it was the 25th? 19th and 20th, so way off. All right, thank you, Maury. Take a look at our KP indices. Well, we all know what that means. Most of us that's been following this channel, when you see them that low for that long, that means we could be on the verge of a 6.5 earthquake or higher within the next 24 to 72 hours. Nothing spectacular I wouldn't expect, though, because we haven't had the large coronal hole that you would need. And I tell you, the SDO here lately has just not been cooperating with us. So at least we have an image of it right now. This is our situation, and earlier I saw this in motion. And maybe I'll just go ahead and go to the logo real quick and hit the refresh button on this, folks, because I wanted to show you the coronal hole that was developing across the southern part of our star, and it appears it is just not gonna cooperate with us again tonight. So I'll just go ahead, go back to our main screen, take a look at our star in motion. There is a coronal hole that I'm watching right now that is forming in the southern part of the equatorial region of the star, and it's about to become Earth facing. Now, also want to point out too, the last time we did a broadcast on Wednesday, we were talking about some bright active regions near the negative 180. Those have diminished. They're nowhere near the strength that they were before. And now we have a very large coronal hole that is also beginning to form right at the close to the eastern limb of the sun. So quiet sun, no sunspots, but solar wind speeds will continue to bombard our magnetic field from time to time due to these large coronal holes, which could in return spark minor geomagnetic storms. We did have the surprise explosion CME not too long ago. Mari covered it well as also. I believe that was on the 13th of August. It was not Earth facing, so we did not see any kind of effects from that. But again, I like it when we see these rogue events during solar minimum. And I think I said this Wednesday too. Just because we get this one explosion every other 3 months doesn't mean that our star is not heading into its grand slumber. It is cycling down. I know I've said this many times on this program that this is not an overnight thing. I mean, a lot of us know who follow this type of information, cooling is almost a decadal thing. We are seeing the effects of it now, beginning indeed. And you know, I always tell people, remember, we're at the very beginning of this grand solar minimum. In fact, according to Dr. Valentina Zarkova, it's supposed to officially start in 2020. It has nothing to do with solar cycle 25. That 2020 is the date that's target for it to begin, the grand solar minimum. When solar cycle 25 happens, it'll happen when it happens. Either way, the grand solar minimum at the very beginning, the effects are not going to be in your face and crazy. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we're already seeing our weather being amplified thus far with cosmic radiation increase in our atmosphere, causing more flooding events, more snows. So And this is only the beginning. This is only just the tip of it. So what are we talking about in 2027? What an interesting time to be following this topic. And this is only the beginning, folks. We've got many years of topic to discuss on this channel. So settle in, because we're not going anywhere. Take a look at the TSI reading for August 7th, 2019. Came in at 1360.662. Again, the TSI came in at 1360.662. Down from a little bit. We were observing TSI readings back on July 31st around the 1360.78. So approximately we've dropped about 0.12 in TSI in just the past week and a half. Again, this data is 8 days behind. We do not have the real-time data at this point on this website. But again, the TSI is trending a little bit lower here in the last couple of weeks. It was on the rise. Now it's back in its natural cycle, up and down, up and down. It is the heartbeat of the sun as well, as far as TSI, how much output we're seeing here. And at the bottom of the screen, if you guys can see it, point this out too. This is also a very good scale to look at, like where the TSI has been. This line means nothing right here that I'm pointing at right now. It's just there because it's keeping things straight and in order. But watching this TSI go up and down, down and back up, close to that line, all the way up, and then look how far down we've gotten. We go back and look and see when the last time we seen the TSI around this mark. And it was during our last minimum, which was the deepest that we've had in 150 years. So to me, this trend right here doesn't look like it's even bottoming out right yet. And we're at the very beginning of this solar minimum, grand solar minimum. So, all right, guys, go ahead and toss it over to Mari for some GSM. Oh, actually, before we do that, the world news. I wanted to show off a little bit more space weather. These gigantic sprites that were captured. Absolutely amazing images here. And that is in 4K, isn't it, Mar? Those of you who have 4K, is that picture in 4K? Oh, I apologize. So let's go ahead and just hand it off to Mari. She actually covers this in her world news report. Sit back, guys.
Thank you, Jake. On to the world news. Take a look at this comet dive in to the sun. The solar system has one less comet. On August 15th, the Soho Observatory watched a comet dive towards the sun. The dirty snowball went in, but it did not come back out again. It appears to have been a Kreutz sun gazer, a fragment from the breakup of a giant comet many centuries ago. Rest in peace, comet. And another awesome display of red sprites in high definition. According to NASA, cosmic rays are intensifying. Last week on August 6, Roger Spinner of Switzerland witnessed a likely side effect. Red sprites were flashing above a thunderstorm in northern Italy about 215 kilometers away. That's about 133 miles away. As the storm raged over Italy's Lombardy region, Spinner's camera recorded 3 magnificent clusters of sprites in rare detail. Shaped like jellyfish, the sprites were more than 40 kilometers tall, that's about 20 miles tall, with purple tentacles dangling towards the thunderstorm below, and red bushy heads touching the edge of space. Balls of red light only a few hundred meters in diameter dot the jellyfish's waist and tentacles. Cosmic rays may be helping Spinner catch such images. Radiation from deep space is intensifying because of the solar minimum. During this phase of the solar cycle, cosmic rays penetrate the sun's weakening magnetic defenses and enter the Earth's atmosphere more than usual. Some researchers believe that extracosmic rays provide the ionizing spark that triggers sprites. Spinner says, even if you know exactly where thunderstorms are and where the sprites may occur, it's always a surprise what kind of spectacle nature actually offers you. Check out the complete video in the description below. We had rare lightning strikes detected near the North Pole. This lightning was detected within 480 kilometers, that's about 300 miles of the North Pole on Saturday, August 10th, 2019. The strikes occurred near 85 degrees north and 20 degrees east, which is about 700 miles north of Lena River Delta of Siberia, Russia. It's one of the furthest north lightning strikes in Alaska. The cause of the lightning strikes was due to instability near the pole, with ample warm, moist air in the lower atmosphere giving rise to thunderstorms. A research scientist for Vassala, a network to detect lightning around the globe, placed the lightning into a historical aspect by going through the data archives. The network found out lightning north of 85 degrees just 3 times. Over to Colorado. Monster hail fell from the sky and hammered areas of the central United States on Tuesday, shattering a state record. Members of the National Weather Service in Goodland, Colorado, and the Colorado State University Climate Center visited a family north of Bethune, Colorado on August 14th to measure a hailstone which was reported as being the state's largest in Colorado history. The Colorado State climatologist measured the hailstone using a set of calipers to get the exact measurement to the 100th of an inch. The hailstone measured 122.6 millimeters, that's 4.83 inches in diameter, at its widest point. The homeowner said that the hailstone was brought indoors and secured in a freezer approximately 30 minutes after falling. Social media pictures were taken soon after the hailstone had fallen yesterday, which were higher than 4.83 inches. The hailstone weighed 8.5 ounces. That's 240.9 grams. At this time, there's no official measurement, and the current state record for the largest hailstone measured remains at 114.3 millimeters. That's 4.5 inches. The Colorado State climatologist will be working with a committee of members from other agencies to take into account the social media pictures and their measurement, along with the measurements taken today. When a final measurement is given, the National Weather Service will be sharing the information. A whopping 18 inches of hail accumulates in parts of Michigan after record-breaking hailstones fell from the skies over Colorado earlier this week. A powerful thunderstorm unleashed significant amounts of hail in Michigan on Wednesday. In this case, it was the accumulation of hail, not the mass of individual stones, that captured onlookers' attention. In some places, as much as 18 inches of hail accumulated. Large piles of ice may be one of the last things people might expect to see on the ground in mid-August, but this is exactly what some portions of Kalamazoo County, Michigan found outside their homes on Wednesday. A severe thunderstorm dumped dime to golf ball-sized hail across southern portions of Kalamazoo County on August 14th. The drifts measured nearly 18 inches in some spots. It looked like popcorn was just bouncing off the ground, one reported. Reports came in that several soy and corn crops were damaged by the onslaught of the hail. Pictures showed broken soy and corn plants that were beaten to the ground. This recent storm brought not only hail but heavy downpours and wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour. Now over to Sudan, where thousands of homes were destroyed and at least 50 people have been killed in severe floods affecting Sudan over the past 10 days. Flooding has affected 25 localities in 16 of Sudan's 18 states. Authorities said August 15th, a total of 9,260 homes and buildings were damaged or destroyed. Schools and health centers have also been damaged. Thousands of people are stranded in the Red Sea state, where heavy rains in Khor Baraka flooded parts of Tokar and Port Sudan Road. There are fears the road will be washed away before rescuers reach more than 600 families still stranded in villages south of Tokar Delta. Capital Khartoum recorded 155 millimeters, that's 6.10 inches of rain on August 9th, resulting in 3 deaths and at least 436 collapsed homes. Another wave of rain and floods hit the capital on August 15th, destroying another 5,224 homes in the districts of Mayo, Al Salam, and Ed Hussein. According to Radio Debanga, there are still significant but uncounted losses in other districts. Coordinator of the neighborhood committees in the southern belt of Khartoum warned against catastrophic health conditions if authorities do not intervene. He further called on authorities to extend the suspension of school classes until the situation has improved. Over to New Zealand, with a damaging water spout hit Auckland's waterfront in New Zealand. This spout caused many yachts at West Haven Marina to lose their moorings. Vehicles got swept away into the ocean. One catamaran was overturned, and a yacht was struck by lightning as the storm moved over the area. In addition, a shipping container toppled onto a car, trapping a driver. He was hospitalized and in moderate condition. Coast Guard duty officer Hemi said the winds had led to significant damage to a huge number of recreational vessels at West Haven. He would like to reiterate that there is a large amount of debris in the harbor. Mariners should remain vigilant when navigating the area, especially around the Prince's Hobson Wharf area. A shipping container had fallen into the water there. Captain Andrew Hayton, who is the harbor master, mentioned there are some minor damage to pontoons and wharves from the North Head to the harbor bridge. Back to Myanmar, we've covered this quite extensively. It does not seem that they can get a break. Extreme monsoon rains hit western India and Myanmar in early August 2019. We've covered that, causing dramatic flooding and landslides, leaving many dead. This animation depicts the satellite-based measurements of rainfall from August 1st to the 12th. The darkest reds reflect the highest rainfall amounts, with many places receiving 600 millimeters, that's 24 inches or more, during this period. This image shows the totals after 12 days of rain. These measurements are a product of the Global Precipitation Measurement Mission, a partnership between NASA, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and 5 other national and international partners. Just incredible amounts of precipitation. The authorities have evacuated around 1 million people into emergency camps.
All right, thank you once again, Mari, for that very busy world report. Lots going on right now. India can't buy a break, like Mari says. Tons of precipitation, the hail everywhere, 18 inches of hail. What more proof do you need about cosmic rays and its effect on climate right now? Check out our t-shirt promo going on right now. Use promo code GSM Love for 15% off. This offer is going through until August 31st. Guys, sit tight. We'll be right back with the climate news section of our program. Or maybe not. we'll just go ahead and do the climate news. So tonight's articles that I picked tonight. We're going to watch a quick video on Marc Morano, who is getting, in my opinion, a lot of exposure on Fox News. It's been a lot back and forth between Fox Business News, but it's really good to see him actually getting some Fox News coverage and not Fox Business News. A lot more people have this channel versus the business version of it. Also, Brian Kilmeade, who is a very worthy host. I listen to his radio program, or I used to in the mornings. But so it's good to see people like Mark getting a little love in the mainstream media. But let's go ahead and watch this quick video here.
All right, it's the latest item on the chopping block for climate change activists. Best animation ever. A new report from the UN says eating less meat is crucial to saving the planet. The planet we're discussing, Earth. Here to weigh in is executive editor of theclimatedepot.com and author of The Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change, Marc Morano. Marc, if we don't stop eating meat, what will happen to the planet? Nothing good, according to the UN.
Yeah, the UN is at it again after saving the planet in 2015 with the UN Paris Agreement. And I mean, they had celebrations. They've finally done it. They're now saying that they didn't save the planet, that now we need a massive expansion of the UN's regulatory power by limiting and reducing and actually getting rid of meat eating altogether. So that's their new target.
And, of course, the U.S. eats more meat, I guess, they claim. The average American consumption of beef is 57 pounds a year, poultry 110, and pork around 50. So the question is, what do those numbers do to the environment?
Well, they're claiming that meat eating is one of the most destructive environmental affections. They're saying that emissions from cows in past reports are more emissions than all of the transportation sector, airlines, planes, automobiles combined. So they have made the cow their primary target. And this goes into the Green New Deal as well. The Green New Deal is going after meat eating as well. The former United Nations chief actually said they want to treat meat eating, banish meat eaters to the separate section like they used to do smokers in restaurants. The former UK climate advisor and involved with the UN has said we need to make meat eating soaring costs. If your behavior, like eating meat, is in odds with the climate agenda, you are now at odds with the regulatory state. Right. And they're talking about huge taxes, 19% tax in Germany right now.
I don't want to get too distracted, but if we have to get rid of our energy sector, right, because, of course, that's destroying the world. Now we have to tell the farmers and tell those ranchers, get rid of cattle. Is anyone going to work anymore? We're just going to get Andrew Yang's $1,000 a month and then go to the Walmart. Meanwhile, here's a look at how much we have. They say that America eats 25% of the world's meat. So again, all eyes on us.
All eyes on us. And interestingly enough, back in the 1970s, they predicted a food catastrophe based on the global cooling scare. Now they're saying because of global warming, we need to change our meat habits. This is nothing more than regulatory lifestyle controls directed by the UN. They're empowering themselves with this report. They claim more than 100 experts came together. It's an open call by the United Nations for activist policy in taxes, in regulation. And we've already seen many activists come out with ideas like the meat patch, like a nicotine patch to induce allergies so people won't eat meat. And it's getting wackier and wackier, but they're dead serious. They're going after meat eating in a way that we've never envisioned. Taxes.
How soon to protest start storming into restaurants, find people with a steak and start screaming at them, some face painters with loud signs. Meanwhile, the co-chair of the UN panel on climate change says this: we don't want to tell people what to eat. Actually, they do. But it would indeed be beneficial for both climate and human health if people in many rich countries consumed less meat and if politics would create appropriate incentives to that effect. And appropriate incentives make it so expensive that people don't want to eat meat.
Yeah, appropriate incentives are taxes. Germany, 19% tax on meat now to save the planet. This is what the entire agenda is about. It would have no impact on the climate. There are actually studies, one from Carnegie Mellon, showing that vegetables have 3 times the supposed climate impact that meat does. It all depends how a food's prepared. Organic farming, much more land intensive than traditional farming. There's all different ways to look at this, and the UN has simplified it to we know best, we want to regulate how you eat.
And by the way, look it up. We might show it a little bit later. Senator Elizabeth Warren got schooled by an Iowa farmer yesterday on the new Green Deal and everything else Democrats stand for. Marc Morano, thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.
All right,
appreciate it.
So here we go again. YouTube gremlins. I don't know. Maybe not. Thanks to Fox News and Marc Morano once again for this interview. And the reason why I showed you guys this video tonight was because Marc said it best. I tried to talk about this a couple nights ago. We talked about the meat banning and people eating insects. Germany's wanting to implement a 19% tax. And, you know, the one thing that stuck out with me on this video, I like the way Marc put everything, and it almost echoes what some of us are saying and talking about in the chat and on this broadcast as well. So this to me is what it's supposed to look like when you talk about people working together and sharing the information, not overdoing it, not underdoing it. But again, thanks to Marc Morano with his work, Climate Depot, and I'm glad to see him getting some love in the mainstream. And I think Fox News, of all the networks, is brave enough to put these guys on their programs as if to hint to its audience and saying, hey, we're listening. We think these Green New Deal policies are ridiculous. Now, that's my hope. It could be that Fox News just wants these guys to be talking against the Green New Deal, and maybe they just love the fact that people like Marc Morano have so many stats that go against the Paris Climate Pact and the Green New Deal, and maybe Fox News just gobbles that up, and they love that there are some very brilliant people out here on the right who are able to debunk this man-made global warming nonsense. But I don't think it's that at all, though, because we've seen Morano before on Fox Business News, and now he's working his way up to Kilmeade. And in my opinion, he's a watchable guy. I've never had an issue with anything Brian's ever reported on, and I think he's always been about providing truth and doing what's right for the people. But just another example of what we can achieve if we all stay on message. Those of us who follow Grand Solar Minimum topic, this is the message. If we stick together and we're all one voice, just think about how much impact it's going to be in the future, in the near future as well. As far as making things aware, I don't think the government is going to be able to hide this behind the global warming curtain anymore. And a lot of folks are concerned about this 2020 election. Climate change is the number one. I'm going to skip that and I'll go right back to it. Climate change is going to be the top or second priority in the presidential debate. And here we have climate crusader Tom Styer money bombs his way into the Democratic presidential debates. And what he's going to do is he's going to declare the climate emergency now. Now, why am I talking about this? Because this might be the only guy right now in the Democratic Party that could win the primaries and actually go against President Donald Trump for the 2020 election. Now, I don't think Tom is qualified or has any different skills that would make him a better president than what we have right now. In fact, what scares me about Tom is if the majority of the people were to follow this message and his powers, executively anyway, what that would do to our economy. What's frightening to me is there's so many talks about Green New Deal policies kicking in around the United States, state by state right now. Minneapolis has a city where they want to ban drive-thrus. New York wants to start banning carbon and natural gas and wants to go to all solar and wind. And I'll be talking about why that's still a worse idea than what's happening. So right now, a lot of these Democratic candidates are gearing up for the election and the debates, and they're going to make climate change a top priority in these debates amongst themselves. And there's not going to be a debate, basically, when they're doing the primaries. They all believe in this Green New Deal. But the reason why this Tom guy could be possible threat to our country is because he's the only candidate right now that doesn't have questionable rhetoric about our country or some radical idea other than his climate change ideas. Everything else, maybe you guys can correct me in the comment section, but so far, this Tom Styer guy seems like a dark horse in the race, but also, if you're a voter out there that doesn't believe in the far left and what their goals are, you might take a chance on a guy like this because he's going to talk a lot about how he wants to save the planet. We've got to do something now. That's what he's going to be talking about. And he's rich, guys. He's got lots of money. So it says right here, just in the last month, he's dropped $2.9 million in Facebook ads. Washington, money can't buy you love, but it looks like it can buy you a spot on the presidential debate stage. He is going to ignite this climate change debate, folks. With his background and what he does already. Tom Steyer's 11th hour bid to run for president left many Democrats stunned. Why the change of heart? It's partly because Styer believes he's the best on climate change in the crowded field. And I'm not going to agree because he knows what he's talking about. I'm going to agree with that statement because out of all these other clowns that are trying to be president, they really don't have a clue. Even, honestly, I mean, Trump has a little bit of an idea, but he still won't get behind the whole idea. He won't come out and just say CO2 is not causing warming. So until he says that, I'm going to say he's on the fence as well. So right now, in my opinion, I don't think there's anybody in the government that understands climate change and what's happening right now. I think that the Trump administration is showing some concern and curiosity on why we should accept this current climate science that's been shoved down our throats. Trump is raising the question, why not debate it? Why not look at both sides? I think a lot of things are getting ready to change really soon, and that could be good. A lot of that has to do with the internet censoring people like us. That's about to be over with. And there's a large fine waiting for some of these companies who have been censoring people who present facts and truth. This isn't some conspiracy theory channel about, fake events and fake aliens or whatever. We're not making this up. Everything here we talk about is verifiable. Even in the articles that we read here in the in your whatever you want to call it, the blogs. I always get cited. Oh, you brought that from a climate blog. That's not facts. Well, they leave the links to the actual source where they get this information. So, but anyway, this is starting to get a little bit interesting now, as Tom Styer is now jumping in to run for president. But is he really expecting to win? Is he just a plant for the global warming front? Or does this guy have a serious chance of winning? I know a lot of people are having a hard time embracing Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie seems to be fading away. His wave was over in the 2016. And if anything, I'll tell you what, I think Bernie Sanders was probably done wrong in his primary back in 2016. There was a lot of momentum on his side in that Democratic Party. But I think his time is come and gone. And now there's reports saying that Biden is getting in his own way. He's a disaster in public. I heard him, he was quoted saying, "We want the truth over facts," is what he was quoted saying. So now they want to limit his public appearances, maybe do it after his afternoon nap and not before. That way he's not so groggy and unclear what's happening. But anyway, not to go off on a political rant here, but I just wanted to throw this article out there to you guys and show you that this election season is going to be one to watch, not for the politics, but I bet you we could play a drinking game on how many times we roll our eyes at these Democrats when they start talking about climate change. In fact, we'd all probably be smashed drunk by the 5th minute of this debate. I'm sure of it. So we'll leave the link at thegrandsolarminimum.com, where Mari takes great time in putting all this together. And I'm not even going to say his name, okay? Here's his face. This guy says global warming predictions have come true. He can prove it, question mark. They're talking about Manbearpig guy here. When asked Sunday about his 2006 prediction that we would reach a point of no return in 10 years if we didn't cut human greenhouse gas emissions, climate alarmist in chief, you-know-who, Manbearpig, implied that his forecast was exactly right. I think he spent a little bit too much time in Colorado, if you know what I mean. No, that's not a jab at Colorado because it's a beautiful state, but we all know what herb is legal there. Anyway, some changes, unfortunately, have already been locked in place, is what he told Jonathan Karl at ABC, sister network of the Clinton News Network, by the way. Sea level increases are going to continue no matter what we do now, but we can prevent a much larger sea level increases, more rapid increases in temperature. The heat wave was in Europe. Now it's in Arctic. We're seeing huge melting of the ice there. So the warnings of the scientists 10, 20, 30 years ago, unfortunately, were accurate. Okay, so he's doing a pretty good job at deflecting here. But he's doing a horrible job at getting his facts straight. The heat wave was in Europe. Yes, if you want to call it a heat wave. Again, I think Europe probably got the worst of it compared to the United States, so I'll give him credit for not mentioning the minor heat wave that we had in the U.S. We did have a little bit more damage from the European heat wave than we did here in the U.S. But also, it's fair to mention that how many times did we find errors in the reporting in temperatures in France during the hottest day of the year or whatever it was out there? Their all-time high temperature was proven to be from a site that basically was giving some erroneous reports and could not be possible, apparently. Rooftops, airports, you name it. These temperature readings from the surface are in areas that favor warmer temperatures. Rooftop slated roofs. Runways at airports with all that jet exhaust everywhere. Yeah, it's going to be a little warmer at the airport. Anyway, Manbearpig goes on to lie about how, despite all this gloom, he's found the good news in Democratic presidential field, in which virtually all the candidates agreed that there's either a top issue or one of two top issues is climate change. So what has Manbearpig been predicting for the planet in this horror movie? An inconvenient truth, he claimed. He says sea levels could rise as much as 20 feet. He didn't provide the timeline, which was shrewd on his part. Absolutely. But even if he had said 20 inches over 20 years, he'd still been wrong. That's important to mention. He also said that with the rise... Oh, by the way, NOAA says, and we have a hard time trusting them, but they only say there's 1/8 of an inch of rise per year. So, okay, 20 inches over 20 years. That math's not adding up, Mr. Manbearpig. Storms are growing stronger and going to grow stronger. And there's no evidence of that. And here's the link, again, for all you people saying, oh, that's just from a blog. Let's click on it together. Can we blame hurricanes on climate change? Not so fast. Article that came out in October 2018. Go ahead and read it for yourselves, folks. Again, another debunk for Manbearpig. He says that a volcano, Mount Kilimanjaro, was losing its... What? Kilimanjaro. You say Manjaro, I say Manjaro. I'm from Southwest Ohio. There's an accent down there, okay? It's Daytonian. Jeez, get off my back, Mari.
We love you.
Yeah, I bet you do. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield right now. It's losing its snow cap due to global warming. By April 2018, the mountain glaciers were taking their greatest snowfall in years. 2 months later, what was it again? Kilimanjaro?
Whatever you say, Jake.
Kilimanjaro was covered by snow, and that's how you say it in Dayton, Ohio, for an unusually long stint. But it's possible that all the snow and ice will soon be gone. Oh, wait. That's because it's a volcano that's been dormant and it could erupt. So again, just a small claim here that he said that was true is not true. Again, he's lying again. Point of no return. If we've truly gotten this far, why even care? Virtually all of the Democratic candidates have agreed that global warming is a top issue. If we had passed the point of no return, there would be no reason to maintain hope. The fact that Manbearpig looking for a savior among the candidates means that he even doesn't believe things have gone too far. Exactly. Thank you, guest writer here at What's Up With That. After the movie, Manbearpig was found claiming that polar bears' habitat is melting and they are literally being forced off the planet, claims Manbearpig. It's possible, however, that there are 4 times as many polar bears as there were in the 1960s. Even if there's not 4 times the amount, they have not been forced off the planet. I believe also the reason why we saw more polar bears in Russian cities, A, you have more population, so the food is going to be a little bit more scarce, and B, with all that ice growth up there, okay, they're crossing areas that they couldn't cross before because of the global warming melting the ice. But now it's coming back. Maybe these guys are wandering further south because they can do that now to look for food. Also in 2007, Manbearpig making statements about possibility of complete lack of summer sea ice in the Arctic by as early as 2013. Fact checker Snopes, which leans so hard left that it often falls over, it has to pick itself up, said before concluding that Manbearpig definitely erred in his use of preliminary projections and misrepresentations of research. Ooh, in your face from Snopes. How about that, Manbearpig? But again, he wants to mention the warming in the Arctic and the melt that happened on the western part near Alaska, but doesn't talk about the strong ice gain in the eastern part towards Nova Scotia and Greenland and that part of the Atlantic. He doesn't talk about that growth. This is typical melting right now. One side melts, the other side gets stronger. And I might add that he's talking about melting ice in the middle of summer in the Northern Hemisphere. Good grief. When's it going to stop with this guy? And the sad thing is he doesn't know when to quit. So now we know he's got his hands in the cookie jar for the Beyond Meat Corporation. He's not only a stakeholder, no pun intended, but he's also an advisor on the board. And he is standing to make millions if one of these whack jobs on the left get elected president and they start implementing the Green New Deal nationwide. And you just saw the interview with Marc Morano. They want to ban beef, get rid of the cows. So we're going to get rid of the ranchers now? So farmers, get ready. You're not going to be able to raise cattle anymore. And it's not just cattle, because it's all meat they want to get rid of. Pork. Say goodbye to the piggies. Chickens, I doubt. That's too much protein in there. I can't imagine their chicken poop is causing, although it does make wonderful fertilizer, I've been told. What a mess this Green New Deal is. And if it got enforced nationally because of one of these presidents winning the election, your job's going to go away. Your bills are going to go up. Your food cost is going to go up. Your insurance is going to go up. And what are they replacing these jobs with? What are these farmers of 20, 30 years? What are they going to go do for a living now? I mean, seriously, what are they going to do for, what are you going to offer them a job at Starbucks? Making someone's latte? I'm not saying that farmers are stupid and can't find a good job afterwards, but seriously, if you're going to take away something they know, they're experts at this. This is what they do. This is what they're born to do. Thanks to farmers, our world thrives. Whether it's raising crop, vegetation, or cattle, or pork, whatever. Again, I couldn't imagine being in my field for 20, 30 years, and then all of a sudden, the government implies new policies that bans my profession. I don't want to do anything. I mean, I wish I could do this full time. This would be amazing. You guys would probably be tired. I'd be on the air 2 or 3 times a day if this was something I could do full time. But let's just say, for instance, that this is just always going to be a side project for me, and the current field that I'm in gets banned. And I love what I do for a living. It's not the best, but I like it. I'm not really in the mood at my age to go out looking for a new profession, to look out for a new job, or get into a different field. I'm 41 going on 42. No, thank you. I can't imagine people who are older than me being told all of a sudden, hey, by the way, can't do this anymore. Yeah, here's an application. You can go be a Walmart greeter or something. I don't know. We'll help you find some kind of job. No, that's not going to cut it. That's why it's important, folks, that if anything, most of you probably vote conservative. Those of you who are on the fence, if you like a job, if you like affordable food pricing and affordable energy, and if you like staying warm, please vote conservative this year. This year, or I'm sorry, 2020, it's going to be the most important election of our lifetime. And I'm not saying that because of how great any candidate is. I'm saying that because of what's at stake right now. The folks that are tuned in right now watching this program are aware that the grand solar minimum is upon us in 2020 and beyond. And we know the difficulties that we're going to have with solar and wind, and I'll get right into that, actually. I've been babbling on here about this guy. Actually, where is the 2 articles, babe? Oh, never mind. That one didn't have a picture with it. So let's start with the charging stations. The big concern about the charging stations. And this is one of those things where I hope maybe that this article puts off fake numbers. That way people get maybe overwhelmed about trying to hack the power grid. But they're saying that a fleet of just 1,000 people simultaneously charging electric vehicles would be adequate for mounting an attack whose effects could rival the blackout that affected the city's west side last month. They're talking about a grid attack that somehow there's a way to trigger a virus through 1,000 people simultaneously using these charging stations throughout the area. 1,000 at the same time. You're probably sitting there going, okay, what is the likelihood? Who knows? Who knows what the likelihood of it is? I mean, with all the craziness that we're experiencing right now in the world, how hard is it to get 1,000 activists together and say, let's do it? Let's do it. So that's one scary part. Right now, we don't have, you can plug in 1.1 million computers right now, and it's not going to be the reason why the power grid gets hacked. So, yeah, this is kind of a fear porn article about electric cars and the vulnerability that is possible of hacking the power grid. Okay, this is just one thing. All right. Big wind, blacklisted. Here's another article. Congress created the production tax credit for wind energy in 1992. In other words, wind turbine owners receive a tax credit for each kilowatt of an hour of electricity their turbine creates, whether the electricity is needed or not. The production tax credit was also supposed to have expired on 1999, but instead Congress has repeatedly extended it after nearly 3 decades of propping up the wind industry. It is past time to let this tax credit expire. Addressing the issue of wind production tax credit Americans for Limited Government, President Rick Manning, wind energy development is no longer a nascent industry, having grown from 0.7% of grid in 2007 to 6.6%, 11 years later, at 275 billion kilowatts. The rationale behind the wind production tax credit has always been that it's necessary to attract investors. Manning added that wind energy development has matured to the point where government subsidization of billionaires like Warren Buffett cannot be justified, neither from an energy production standpoint nor a fiscal one. There are plenty of reasons for ending the tax credit, and here are some of them. Point 1, wind energy is unreliable. Wind turbines requires winds of 6 to 9 miles per hour to produce electricity. When wind speeds reach approximately 55 miles per hour, turbines shut down to prevent damage to equipment. Wind turbines also shut down in extremely cold weather. Grand solar minimum, folks. Okay? That's what I got to say about your wind turbines. Right there in that first paragraph, everything that it's mentioning right now is we're going to experience that as well in the grand solar minimum. Due to this unreliability, relatively large amounts of backup power capacity must be kept available. They don't have that capability yet. Wind energy often requires the construction of a costly new high voltage transmission lines. We've talked about this too. They're talking about the maintenance cost and how much it's going to cost to install. Generating electricity from wind requires much more land than does coal, natural gas, nuclear, or even solar power. According to the 2017 study, generating a megawatt of electricity from coal, natural gas, or nuclear power requires about 12 acres. Producing 1 megawatt of electricity from a solar energy requires 43.5 acres, and harnessing wind, 70.6 acres. All right, so it's a waste of space, basically, right? Waste of space, shuts down in extreme cold, and it shuts down at 55-mile-per-hour winds, which is possible when you're dealing with high winds, storms coming in through wherever it is. So if this thing shuts down, how many hours does it stay shut down? How much time are we losing on electricity that could be made? 6 to 9 miles an hour for consistent to produce electricity. All right. See where I'm going with this? The environmental disaster of solar. The picture caught my eye. The picture caught my eye. I don't need to read this. Look at that. You just got to look at it, folks. I mean, look at it.
Look at it.
The mess. That is an absolute mess. And this is just one solar field. Is it abandoned? Did people just give up? Was this from a storm? Of course, they use these pictures and don't tell us what we're looking at here most of the time, but disposal of decommissioned solar panels in regular landfills is not recommended in case modules break, toxic materials leach into the soil. But where do most decommissioned panels go? Landfills. Recycling is often recommended, but is not practicable because recycling costs more than the economic values of the materials recovered, which is why most solar panels end up in landfills. So we know that it's harmful to the environment to put them in landfills, and we still do it. How about we get a group together about that instead of talking about all the pollution from carbon? Let's talk about the dangerous toxins that are in these solar panels, and let's have an outcry about why landfills we're finding these burned out used solar panels or damage from storms. This is just an example though, guys. I wanted to show you this because this is just an example. Let's say this is a solar field in action. Maybe this was a windstorm. Maybe this was a tornado that came through. Maybe this was a hailstorm and these things got rocked. I can actually see a couple holes in some of these panels. So I'm imagining this probably was after a hailstorm. Who's going to rebuild this? How much power will this affect the grid if this one particular field was out of commission? On top of the fact, maybe that day that the solar panel field was also out of commission, guess what? It wasn't windy enough. So we didn't produce any electricity from the wind turbine. Now we have a new disaster to deal with. There's no power to this local area that has wind turbines with no wind and solar panels that are not functioning to harvest electricity. So how are you going to stay warm? How are you going to light your house? You're not. But yet there's plenty of people out there who want to be completely carbon free by 2050. I'll tell you something right now, by 2050, they're going to wish that greenhouse gases was cause of warming because they would be pumping CO2 into the atmosphere on a minute by minute basis. I promise that, if it really happened that way. So here's the fear porn, I guess. Electric car charging stations may be portals for power grid cyber attacks. Big Win is blacklisted, and we've already talked about a community in Michigan. 2009, they spent $500,000 on the investment of wind turbines, only to tear them all down because it cost too much to maintain them. And of course, the environmental disaster of solar energy. So, guys, I guess what I'm trying to say is green is not really that good for the environment. If you look at it, it's not going to keep us warm. It's not going to help us keep those water treatment plants up that keep that water drinkable. Do you see the picture I'm painting? Imagine these policies being implemented by the left, going through a grand solar minimum, which is going to give us climate challenges. It's going to give us agriculture challenges, on top of the fact that our government, our world government, wants to mess with our power supply and make it more expensive and make it less reliable during a challenging climate. It's time to wake up, folks. Oh, and this girl here. I'm not going to get too deep into this article here. You guys can click on it. But according to this article here, Greta sailing across the Atlantic Ocean is time consuming. There's more manpower involved because when they get to New York, they're just going to have those sailors turn that boat right back around and sail back across the Atlantic. What this article is trying to imply is that there are more CO2 emissions coming out of this sailboat in its journey to New York than the flight itself. You take the flight, you also cut back on the manpower. They don't need a crew to run a ship. It's a joke. And the article cites that the reason why they're doing this is to show people, like, everybody's talking about we got to do something and nobody does anything, so we're doing something. Oh, you're doing something, all right. You're putting your 16-year-old daughter in harm's way. I mean, let's face it, folks. People sailing from one part of the world across the Atlantic to the other, that's done for world records and Guinness Book of World Records and stuff like that. This is not something that I would recommend or prefer to do with my children. I'd want to keep them safe. Now, not saying that an airplane is safer. You could always crash into the ocean. I get that. But we're less likely to see that than we are on an unfortunate accident during rough seas or a storm. I'm sure they have talented navigational people. But guys, hey, what I would be scary about is that all their GPS and everything is ran off of solar energy. So they're relying on their navigation equipment to work based on their solar and wind power operations. That is scary. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, folks, thanks for sticking around tonight for our weather update here at the GrandSolarMinimum.com. One of my new favorite maps. We use these on the daily now with our solar updates. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. More weather for the northwestern part of Kansas, but the good news is that storm, that cell that was coming out of Colorado into northwestern Kansas, looks like it is diminishing a little bit. But there is a new line of heavy rain showers that has formed on the far western part of Nebraska and the far eastern part of Colorado. Go ahead and highlight this area. So we still want to keep our eyes on which direction. Right now, this storm is moving due east. Matt, heads up, buddy. You're in the slight area for severe weather. But usually, guys, this year, when they show these levels of severity, like this is light, this is marginal, this is slight, guys, usually when we get to that yellow area, it's almost dead on, and especially when they mark a red area inside the yellow, inside the dark green, inside the light green, that prediction is almost 100% accurate. So right now, the affected areas that we could be watching is across Kansas, southern Nebraska, into Missouri, St. Louis. You're in the pathway of this, same with Kansas City, and then into western Illinois overnight tonight. As far as showers for the Great Lakes, Michigan, Traverse City, South Bend, Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, some typical thunderstorms. Across the South, South Carolina, North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, that is. Still looking at stormy weather off and on tonight. It almost seems like it's just been raining nonstop in the south and southeast, especially in the Florida area, the Tampa, starting to break up now. Lighter showers continue to move across Florida. Let me move this up a little bit so we can see Florida. And a good chance for severe weather tonight here in central New York and upstate New York as well. Marginal chance for the rest of the Northeast, except for the East Coast side of Maine as well. And really just some showers moving across Montana. That is our current weather. Now let me zoom out here. Let me see if I can find something for you folks out there. I do feel a little okay. So let's take a look at our regular GFS run. And yes, tropical storm Krosa makes landfall near Hiroshima, Japan. 1 dead, at least 40 injured. This is just now happening. Tropical storm Krosa has made landfall Thursday afternoon. The city of Kure near Hiroshima in southern Japan. Large areas were evacuated. Look at the size of this thing. 400,000 people were advised to evacuate. Pretty decent sized storm. We will keep you updated on the conditions of that as well. Let's put this radar in motion here, guys, at windy.com, if it's going to work for me. Hello. So again, watching this storm in Japan, lots of activity in the Pacific Ocean. Thank you, Mari, for making me alert to that situation as well. Let's go ahead and go into our GFS outlook. We just looked at our local weather. Now let's take a look and see what's going to happen over the next few days, and we'll try to see what that storm is going to look like. More moisture being pumped through the Ohio Valley through the 19th, early next week. The south, you're continuing to see your scattered storms. Northeast and Ohio Valley still getting storms and showers. Also by midweek, Nebraska, Kansas picking up your wet pattern, as that will flow eastward as well across the south again. Lots of tropical moisture in the Gulf by the 22nd, and we are starting to see a little bit of development, but not the kind of development we were seeing earlier this week for the 23rd and 24th. Again, we're trying to stay focused on a possibility of something happening because we've seen several model runs where we do have a low pressure system. Now, here's that one system we were talking about, possibly hitting Southern California. That does not look to be happening at all as well. So as we look at this next model run, and this has taken us all the way to the 1st of September. First of all, lots of moisture in the United States. That high pressure that's sitting right here off of the East Coast is what is driving this moisture to stay in the same. It's almost like if that high pressure stays there, it's a conveyor belt. It's dragging the moisture from the tropics and pulling it up. It's rotating around this high. All right. And it's pretty firm. This high pressure system is not moving. So, with that being said, moving all the way into September 1st, the 18Z does not have, maybe this right here is an indication of a storm. So the difference between the last storm that we had that we saw, it actually held up and was somewhat of a storm. We keep seeing it pop up and then it disorganizes and then it pops back up. And that's September 1st. Let's check the 00Z forecast model. And I checked this one because this is where we first saw that storm. Again, lots of tropical moisture. The Gulf, the South, the Southeast, parts of the Northeast. So this might be the slowest start to hurricane season in the record books, folks. Not showing up there either. Take a look at the 6. I mean, every model run we look at, there is no sign. Right here. Okay, so the 6 is showing something approaching on the 24th. And again, I think this model right here, the 06Z, has been showing this particular scenario every time we've watched it, except it was further east last time over New Orleans. So here's one model that has a possibility of a disturbance, but not a hurricane by any means whatsoever. We could also clearly see a cold front moving through the northeast. That low pressure system really ushering in possibly some really cool air behind it after these storms pass through late August through the Midwest. And look how low that high pressure dips down. Let's check out the temperatures. So far, folks, we're not seeing this particular storm that a lot of people are making a lot of noise about. GFS not showing, really indicating a huge temperature decrease. In fact, we are going to see a little bit warmer weather here at the end of the month. I did notice AccuWeather has updated their forecast. We will actually be in some kind of a summer type pattern in the next few days. We will touch 90 up here in the capital region, but after that 4 or 5 days of 80s and maybe a possibility of 90-degree weather, it will start to drop once again. So here we are this Sunday. Beautiful weather, by the way, folks. Daytime highs in New York. Look at that. On Sunday, that's what I was talking about. The 90-degree mark is possible for Albany, New York. So that heat is going to ridge all the way up the East Coast. And this is not untypical to see 90-degree weather this close to the coast. Honestly, folks, it's not. This does happen when you get these heat waves and when the heat ridges up. But daytime highs for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska, you guys are looking at 60s and 70s. Minnesota, Wisconsin, same story. Daytime highs. Warm weather will continue into Monday for the Northeast. Parts of Ohio in the mid-80s. That's where you should be in the summertime. Kansas, Nebraska, definitely increasing the temperature a little bit. By Tuesday, the daytime highs start to come back down to normal for most of the Northeast. Still another day in the upper 80s, though, before we start to see it cool down a little bit on Thursday, August 22nd, where daytime highs will drop to 75 degrees on the 22nd of August. So Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the rest of the Northeast is going to see some relief from this heat that's coming up. Starting on Saturday, it's going to start increasing on the heat here for us here in the Northeast and parts of the East as well. The South and the Southeast and Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, it's summertime for you guys for sure here for the next few days. Also, lots of heat out in Arizona, Phoenix in the triple digits, Southern California also in the upper 90s. I just saw where San Francisco broke an all-time record the other day on their daily temperature highs. Look at that, August 23rd, daytime or nighttime lows were getting in the lower 50s in the Northeast. The highs on Saturday, August 24th, completely different, 72 degrees. So enjoy that summer heat, New York, this weekend, because next weekend's not going to be the same. Same with Ohio and the Northern Plains, the South and the Central Plains, more the same, summer heat. Same with the West and the Southwest. Next weekend we are, guys, tries to get back into the 80s again next weekend for the Northeast and the Ohio Valleys. It does have some minor success, but the temperatures start to cool down a little bit here towards the end of August, which they should. 70s across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and New York by the beginning of the following week, Monday, August 26th. And then we go into the end of August. Temperatures start. Look at that, Texas. Hallelujah. 69 degrees for the high temperature on Tuesday, August 27th. Dallas, you're going to be in the 70s. How about that? Hang on, folks. The heat will start to diminish. And as you look at the high here on the 28th, yeah, we still got 80s and 90s, but lesser of an area of those temperatures. And then we go into the 30th of August. I'm sorry, the 29th of August, which is a Thursday. Less 90s, more 80s. Trying to creep up again to the Northeast, but by Friday, August 30th, summer is going to try to hang on for as long as it can. And it does warm up quite a bit here at the end of August. So, what does that mean? Well, we also starting to see a cool down in the Midwest and the central part of the United States. So when there's heat, there's cool, and when there's cool, there's heat. So it'll be interesting to see looking at these daytime highs on September 1st. Folks like myself in the capital region, that's not a mistake. The daytime high in Albany forecasted for September 1st is 59 degrees. So after all this heat and these 80s and possible 90s that are coming up, it's very possible that we could see a 40-degree temperature drop within a 24-hour period, maybe even a 36-hour period. But still, far away to talk about. But the one thing that was important tonight on the GFS forecast models were the talks of a possible hurricane that is just not forming, and GFS does not like it. Now, I could look at the euro and all that stuff, sure, but the GFS has been really good to me this year, 2019. A lot better than what it was in 2017, that's for sure. So I'm going to continue to kind of go with this GFS model. I think it's been realistic for the most part. And even if it's late reporting the storm, it still finally gets its act together and gets in line with the rest of the models when it's time to show the storm. Right now, I'm not saying not be prepared because we have lots of moisture coming in because of this low pressure system that won't leave the eastern part of the United States. It continues to rotate that moisture in from the tropics, the Gulf, into the south, Ohio Valley, the East Coast, all the way up into the Northeast. So a shift on moisture, definitely for the eastern part of the United States, from the south to the east, all the way to the Northeast. Central Plains will get its typical waves as well, but the majority of this moisture is going to stay the Ohio Valley, the Atlantic States, the Northeast, and the South for the most part. Mari, did you have anything you would like to add before we exit the airwaves tonight? It's been pretty decent broadcast, I would say, but lots to talk about, I'm sure, in the chat.
Not too shabby, Jake. Thank you.
We
for
try.
that
We try.
wonderful broadcast. Av Team, he came busting into the chat today, and he's like, he doesn't say hi or anything. He just jumps right in, 2 feet. He put, apparently these idiots forget people eating steaks also have knives on them. Don't yell at them about the eating meat.
No, I get it.
Steak knives, all that funny. It made me laugh. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I would like to thank Daniel for the super chat. Daniel, that's very kind. Thank you very, very much. Also, I want to give a shout out, because I promised this the other day, to our Patreons. We don't really have a lot of Patreons, but we really appreciate these people that support our channel on a monthly basis on that platform. So, shout outs to Richard, Niles, Rod, Catherine, Melinda, Douglas, Liz, Rednick Howley, nice name, Mike, Terry, Robbie, Kathy, Dustin, Kevin, Sandra, Marlon, Candace, Thomas, Elise, and that is it for that. I meant that I think we have like 18 people that fund us monthly. It's like $1 up to $5. I think most of our people donate to us on a monthly basis, and I have never officially listed them out like that. We really truly appreciate that you do that for us to support our channel. Thank you. Let's see what else I got in here. Matt Naya says, Jake, when the primaries come around, we'll be in weekend after weekend of winter storms and then spring flooding next year. So let's see if they still ignore the cooling in GSM. Such a great point, huh? Yeah,
and that very good point, because I know most of these games are going to be televised, and it will be interesting to see how many football games, college and pro, that we'll witness being played in the snow, because I know if you're a fan of this sport, you like watching the snow games. They're entertaining to watch. You don't get to see them as much, but they do happen from time to time. So you're right. The proof, if it happens a lot this year, and especially next spring, if it's worse than this spring, is that going to affect Major League Baseball worse than it has in the last 2 years?
let's see. Daniel put no sunny side up bags, no hot dogs, no electricity. Can't poop, but 3 times a week. More, please. And then I put, don't forget to eat your bugs.
Yeah, you throw that one in there too. Why not?
I mean, it's unreal. It really is. I call them, what did I call them in the chat? Extreme domestic terrorists. That's what they're not liberals, they're not Democrats.
They're homegrown somehow.
They're some sort of new breed,
hybrid,
weird, extremist domestic terrorists. That's what I look at them as. Anyway, Matthew Bros put, hopefully Trump gets Greenland bought. I read that article the other day to Jake and I was like, oh my God, that's huge. Like, can you imagine if he actually is able to negotiate that?
Greenland?
The purchase of Greenland. Fantastic. It's just very interesting.
I think it would be
historic.
Well, that, and it would reveal a lot of truth. We'd finally get the real answers for once.
Really interesting. And then Doug Ellens had to get it out of his system. He's like, hey, GSM, bring GSM umbrellas, Ellas. And then he actually mocked the Rihanna song.
That's not a bad idea. GSM umbrellas.
Well, speaking of
GSM, GSM,
we might have to do a parody. We are known for doing parody songs, aren't we, G?
We could, but I mean, honestly, is there anything really funny about this?
No, there isn't. That's why it's no fun, but sometimes you need to be lighthearted and have a laugh.
We'll just make fun of other people.
But that's what Manbearpig is for.
Manbearpig and Commander of the Sun. You know,
we have the Commander of the Sun to have a laugh at.
We can have laughs.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway, speaking of Commander of the Sun, I was also talking about maybe having that live call-in show. I think, especially, the election season and all the topics that are going to come up, we might have some edgy things we want to cover. And I think I really want to do that on the other channel.
Why not?
Just I want to have it on a separate channel just because...
speaking of which,
get a little crazy.
Just so the folks out there, Dr. Circus and Jeff Harmon, we both were able to speak with both of those guys. We didn't forget you guys. We are still currently in the middle of a pile of work. Mario is trying to get through those interviews as fast as possible, but stay patient with us. We will release those eventually. I know we had those talks a couple weeks ago, but I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Mario has been busting her butt fighting the Manbearpig rhythms of YouTube and trying to get our channel back into the noticed category once again. So please bear with us. We will get to those as soon as possible.
Matt Naya says, Mari and Jake, if you make a t-shirt, I will buy one. We actually do sell loads. I love art and design, and I have some really interesting things on our t-shirt store, like Cosmic Rays. Yep. That's my favorite shirt.
Mine's the cool cats in the picture of Al's face being frozen in ice. That's classic.
Well, anyway, I have the link on our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com, and there currently is a promotion for 15% off using the promo code GSMLOVE. I don't know if I got anything. I think that's all I got. I really enjoy chatting with everyone in the chat. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend this hour and 20 minutes with us. We really appreciate it.
Conversation is key, guys. We're going to make awareness. We got to talk about it. It's uncomfortable when you're trying to talk to somebody about this that is outside of this community, but the proof will be right in front of their face. It'll get easier and easier to talk about once things that you've already told your friends and family are going to start happening. And I know some of my family and friends are starting to pay attention because they're noticing the things that I've been talking about and they're happening. I'm not a predictor or forecaster, or, crystal ball or anything like that. I'm just following the education and the instructions that I've received on what happens during these solar cycles and what we can expect when you have increased cosmic rays and more cloud coverage. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. This has been an awesome week. We appreciate everyone's support and love that's been with us all week this week. We will be back live Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, another solar update will start back up on Monday in the mornings. Until next week, guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And check us out, Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and all over the internet as well. Mari has got us everywhere, so I'm sure you can find us. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk soon. Take care, guys.